My name is Melissa, and I'm 30 years old. I live in Denver, Colorado, with my husband Benjamin. And right now, we're on the edge of one of life's most beautiful moments, waiting to welcome our first child. I'm 8 months pregnant, and every flutter, every tiny kick, every heartbeat I feel inside me fills both of us with a mix of excitement and wonder. It's a kind of joy you can't really explain until you experience it. The anticipation of holding our baby for the first time has been the light guiding us through everything. Benjamin and I have spent the last 2 years preparing for this new chapter in a way that goes beyond just picking out nursery colors or baby names. We've worked hard to create a solid foundation for our family's future. Benjamin, who works as an IT consultant, often takes on extra freelance jobs to help build our savings. Meanwhile, I manage our finances full-time, making sure every dollar is allocated wisely. We made the difficult choice to cut back on vacations, skip dinners out, and put away luxuries. It wasn't always easy, but every sacrifice felt worth it, because we wanted to be ready for any unexpected expenses that might come with pregnancy and delivery. By now, we've managed to save $150,000 money set aside specifically for our baby's medical care, hospital costs, and any treatments that might be needed during or after delivery. To most people, that might sound like a lot, but to us, it's a source of peace, a shield against the kind of fears that creep in when you're about to bring a new life into the world. It means that no matter what happens, we can ensure our baby receives the best care possible. It's not just money, it's security, hope, and love all wrapped into one. Throughout this journey, Benjamin has been my unwavering support. He never misses a doctor's appointment, always making sure I feel safe and cared for. Together, we've painted the nursery a soft, calming sky blue, assembled the crib late into the night, and stocked up on all the essentials from tiny clothes to diapers. Every detail carries the love we already feel for our little boy, whom we've named Bobby. That name brings us comfort, a tangible connection to the baby growing inside me. One of the greatest blessings has been Benjamin's mother, Evelyn. Since my own parents live far away, Evelyn has stepped in with open arms and an open heart. She's kind and warm, always excited to become a grandmother. She often invites us to her home for lunch, cooking my favorite meals and sharing advice from her years of experience. Her presence has been a soothing balm to many of my worries, especially as I navigate the physical and emotional challenges of pregnancy. But life is never without its complications. Christina, Benjamin's older sister, has always cast a shadow over our happiness. She has struggled deeply with infertility, and while I feel empathy for her pain, her bitterness has often turned into resentment aimed directly at me. I've tried to stay kind, to avoid conflicts, but her passive-aggressive remarks sting more than she might realize. To keep the peace, Benjamin and I usually plan visits when Christina isn't around. For the most part, this works. But beneath the surface, tension simmers. Despite these challenges, Benjamin and I hold on to our hope and joy. Every ultrasound, every milestone feels like a gift. I remember vividly the night we first heard Bobby's heartbeat. The rapid thumping echoed through the quiet room, and tears welled up in both our eyes. That moment made everything feel real in a way words never could. It was proof that a tiny life was growing strong inside me. And for that, we were endlessly grateful. As the months passed, morning sickness eased, and by the time I was 5 months along, we learned Bobby was a boy. Hearing the words made the future feel even more tangible. We had picked his name months ago, but now it felt like a promise. Something real and alive. The nursery was ready, the clothes neatly organized, and our savings had reached their goal. We felt prepared emotionally, financially, and physically to welcome Bobby into the world. Evelyn continued to be a constant source of love and support. She brought meals, accompanied me to appointments, and crocheted tiny blankets filled with warmth and care. Her excitement helped quiet many of the fears I had about becoming a new mom. Yet, even in these moments of peace, the shadow of Christina's bitterness never fully disappeared. Every time we crossed paths with her, It felt like walking on eggshells. One afternoon, Evelyn invited us over for lunch, hoping to enjoy a peaceful meal together. But from the moment we arrived, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Christina was there, her eyes cold, her smile forced, and her sarcastic remarks cut through the room like ice. Benjamin tried to keep the peace, and Evelyn steered the conversation to safer topics, but the unease lingered. It was a quiet reminder that beneath the surface, danger was quietly gathering. Though we tried to keep the tension at bay, the strained relationship with Christina weighed heavily on all of us. Benjamin's mother, Evelyn, was the steady heart of our little family circle. Her warmth wrapped around me like a soft blanket during sleepless nights and doctor visits, with my own parents miles away. Evelyn's presence became more than just comforting, it became essential. She stepped in as a second mother, sharing stories of her own children, offering advice without judgment, and filling our home with a sense of calm I desperately needed. Evelyn's support went beyond emotional comfort. She was always bustling around the house, preparing nourishing meals designed to keep both me and Bobby healthy. She came to appointments when Benjamin's work schedule was overwhelming and stayed by my side through countless ultrasounds, always whispering words of encouragement. It was a blessing I didn't take for granted, especially when the weight of pregnancy fatigue and uncertainty pressed down on me. But not everyone shared Evelyn's generosity of spirit. Christina's bitterness was a storm cloud that refused to clear. Her struggle with infertility had twisted into a quiet, simmering resentment that often erupted in subtle but painful ways. While I understood her pain, it was hard to face the cold stares, the sharp comments disguised as jokes, and the lingering hostility. I kept my distance, but her presence felt like a slow poison, threatening the joy Benjamin and I had worked so hard to nurture, to protect ourselves. Benjamin and I developed a cautious routine visiting Evelyn's house only when Christina was unlikely to be there, keeping our interactions minimal and polite. It was a fragile piece, a balancing act on a tightrope stretched thin over years of unresolved tension. Despite the care we took, I could feel the tension lurking beneath the surface, a ticking time bomb waiting for a spark. One Sunday, Evelyn invited us over for lunch, hoping to create a rare moment of togetherness. She prepared my favorite roast chicken, filling the kitchen with the irresistible scent of garlic and butter. Benjamin and I arrived with fresh flowers, eager to show our appreciation and perhaps soften the edges of the strained family dynamics. But the moment we walked through the door, I sensed something was wrong. Christina was already seated at the table, her eyes locking onto mine with a mix of cold calculation and barely concealed disdain. Though she forced a smile, her tone dripped with sarcasm as she greeted me. It was clear she saw me as the pregnant princess she resented so deeply. I took a slow breath, determined to keep the peace, but Benjamin could see through her mask immediately. He stepped in gently but firmly, reminding Christina that this was a lunch, not a battlefield. Evelyn, ever the peacemaker, quickly shifted the conversation to lighter topics, asking about the nursery, suggesting baby names, talking about the weather. For a moment, it seemed the meal might pass without incident, but Christina's coldness was like a shadow over the table. She mostly kept to herself, scrolling on her phone or rolling her eyes whenever Evelyn expressed her excitement about Bobby. The joy Evelyn radiated was met with silent disdain, and I could feel the room's warmth shrinking. Despite my efforts to stay calm, every encounter with Christina felt like walking on glass. I told myself this was only temporary, just a few hours we had to endure before returning to our peaceful home. But beneath the surface, a growing storm brewed, one I didn't yet realize would soon explode with devastating consequences. As the days slipped by, Benjamin and I clung to the moments that reminded us why we were fighting so hard. Each ultrasound appointment became a sacred ritual, a glimpse into the tiny world growing inside me. I still remember the night we first heard Bobby's heartbeat. The rapid thumping echoed through the quiet room like a secret song, one only we could hear. Tears welled up in our eyes as the reality of new life settled deep in our hearts. It was a quiet celebration, just the two of us, holding hands and letting the joy wash over us like a gentle tide. With each milestone, our hope grew stronger. Morning sickness slowly faded, and by the 5th month, the doctor revealed the gender, a boy. The news made everything feel even more real. We had picked the name Bobby months before, but hearing it confirmed was like hearing a promise whispered from the future. We talked about the life we wanted to give him, the safety, the love, the laughter that would fill our home. The nursery was ready well before Bobby's arrival. Soft sky blue walls, a crib assembled with care and late-night determination. Tiny clothes sorted by size, waiting patiently in drawers. Every detail was a thread in the fabric of our hope and dreams. The $150,000 we'd saved was a silent guardian, a shield against the unknown. It wasn't just a number on a spreadsheet. It was peace of mind wrapped in dollars. A promise that no matter what, we could give our son the best start possible. Evelyn remained a steady presence throughout it all. She brought meals that nourished more than just the body comfort food, that spoke of home and healing. She accompanied me to appointments when Benjamin's work called him away, always there with a reassuring smile and quiet strength. She crocheted blankets with love that I could feel wrapped around Bobby long before he was born. Her excitement about becoming a grandmother was contagious, and it helped soothe the fears I sometimes couldn't voice. Yet, even in these moments filled with hope and preparation, the shadow of Christina's bitterness lingered. We did our best to avoid confrontations, but the undercurrent of resentment was impossible to ignore. Every meeting with her felt like stepping onto fragile ice, unsure of when it might crack. I reminded myself to focus on the joy growing inside me, to hold tight to the love that surrounded us. But fate had other plans. The quiet before the storm was about to end, and our peaceful world was about to be shaken in ways I never imagined. The fragile calm we had built shattered faster than I could have ever anticipated. It began with a sudden chilling confrontation, one that turned our hopes and preparations into a nightmare. Christina's bitterness, long simmering beneath polite smiles and careful distance, exploded with terrifying force. I still remember the moment like it was yesterday. I was at Evelyn's house, helping sort through baby clothes and supplies, feeling comforted by her warm kitchen and the smell of freshly baked banana bread. For a while, everything felt normal, safe. Then, the front door creaked open. My heart sank as Christina's familiar voice filled the room. She barely glanced at me, her tone flat and cold. "Oh, it's you," she said, her words heavy with disdain. I kept my voice steady, careful not to show fear. "I didn't know you'd be here today." But Christina wasn't interested in pleasantries. She dropped her phone and fixed me with a hard stare, no longer hiding the anger simmering beneath her calm facade. "We need to talk. It's about the money." My confusion quickly turned to dread. The money. The $150,000 Benjamin and I had painstakingly saved for our baby's medical care. Christina's demand hit like a punch to the stomach. She said she needed it, desperately, claiming her fertility treatments had left her drowning in debt. She said family was supposed to help each other and accused me of selfishness for refusing. My voice stayed calm, but my heart raced as I explained that the money was reserved for Bobby's health, non-negotiable. Untouchable. It wasn't just savings. It was the security net that could save my baby's life in an emergency. Her face twisted with anger and something darker. "You don't deserve any of this," she spat. "You just married lucky. You've never struggled like I have. You don't appreciate your blessings." My hands clenched, but I stayed silent, trying to defuse the growing storm. Then everything spiraled out of control. Christina's eyes burned with fury, her breath quickening, her fists tightening. Before I could react, she lunged forward with a violent kick directly to my swollen belly. Pain exploded through me like a shockwave, and I doubled over, instinctively wrapping my hands protectively around my stomach. Tears blurred my vision as a terrifying warmth soaked through my clothes. My water had broken. I was trembling, panic rising in waves. But Christina wasn't done. She grabbed a fistful of my hair, yanking my head back with cruel force. Sharp pain shot through my scalp as I cried out. Then her other hand squeezed my face roughly, nails digging into my skin. Her voice was low and venomous. Maybe if I ruin your perfect life now, you'll finally understand real pain. Sobbing, struggling to breathe. My mind was consumed by fear for Bobby. Each second stretched into an eternity. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the room. Evelyn had returned, her eyes wide with horror as she saw the attack. Her rage was fierce and immediate. She slapped Christina hard across the face and yelled, demanding an end to the violence. Evelyn's fierce intervention was a lifeline. She called 911 and Benjamin as I fought to stay conscious. My body aching, but my spirit clinging desperately to hope. Within minutes, paramedics arrived, carefully lifting me onto a stretcher as Benjamin's pale, panicked face hovered above me. His voice was a shaky whisper in the chaos. "I've got you. Bobby's going to be okay. Just hold on." The police followed close behind, quickly taking Christina into custody. Officer Scott read her rights, and the gravity of the moment hit me like a tidal wave. This wasn't just a family feud anymore. It was a violent crime against an unborn child. The safe, hopeful world Benjamin and I had built was now fractured. But our fight to protect Bobby had only just begun. The moments after the attack blurred into a whirlwind of urgency and fear. Evelyn never left my side, her steady presence grounding me as the paramedics worked swiftly to assess my condition. Benjamin's hand was a lifeline, gripping mine tightly, his eyes wide with panic, but filled with determination. The pain in my abdomen was sharp and relentless, but the fear for Bobby's safety kept me awake, alert, desperate to hold on. In the ambulance, the flashing red lights cast a frantic glow over everything. The sound of the siren was a harsh reminder that our peaceful life had been shattered. The paramedics spoke gently, their voices calm amid the chaos, encouraging me to breathe, to stay strong for my baby. Benjamin whispered prayers and promises, squeezing my hand like he feared letting go would mean losing us both. At the hospital, the atmosphere was urgent but controlled. A team of doctors and nurses awaited us, moving quickly to prepare for an emergency C-section. The reality hit me all at once. Bobby was coming earlier than planned, and the risks were high. As they wheeled me into the operating room, Benjamin's hand slipped from mine. His face was etched with worry, but he mouthed words I barely caught through the haze of pain and fear. "I love you." The surgery felt like hours, though it was only minutes. When I finally woke, my body was sore, heavy with exhaustion and relief. The steady beep of the monitors was a lifeline, a reminder that Bobby was still fighting. A nurse's gentle voice reassured me he was stable, but he needed special care in the NICU. The thought of my tiny son, surrounded by machines and wires, filled me with a mix of hope and dread. Benjamin arrived soon after, his eyes red from worry but shining with relief. We clung to each other, finding strength in our shared fear and love. "He's a fighter," Benjamin whispered, his voice trembling. We made it through, holding his hand. I felt the fragile thread of hope begin to weave through the dark. Meanwhile, the police continued their work. Christina was taken into custody, her anger replaced with cold resignation as the evidence against her mounted. Evelyn provided the security footage from her home, a chilling record of the attack that would soon become central to the legal battle ahead. The quiet warmth of our family had been shattered by violence. But with the law on our side, Benjamin and I were determined to see justice done, through the haze of pain and uncertainty. One thing was clear. Our fight to protect Bobby was only beginning. The weeks ahead would test us in ways we couldn't imagine, but we had each other. And that gave us the strength to face whatever came next. The days following the attack were a blur of hospital visits, sleepless nights, and mounting anxiety not just for Bobby's health, but for what lay ahead in the courtroom. Benjamin and I knew that protecting our son would mean more than just medical care. It meant holding Christina accountable for what she had done. The peace we once dreamed of now felt like a distant hope, overshadowed by the reality of a legal battle. Attorney Eric arrived at Evelyn's home one afternoon, carrying a thick folder that seemed to hold the weight of our entire ordeal. His calm, steady voice helped cut through the chaos as he laid out the path forward. The evidence was overwhelming security footage showing the assault, medical records documenting the injuries, police reports detailing every detail. It was the proof we needed to show the court that Christina's actions were not just reckless, but deliberate. Benjamin's jaw tightened as Eric described the charges: aggravated assault on a pregnant woman, reckless endangerment of an unborn child, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. These were serious offences, carrying the potential for significant prison time. Eric assured us that the prosecution would seek the maximum penalty, making it clear this was no minor family dispute, but a grave crime with devastating consequences. Despite the fear and exhaustion, I felt a fierce determination rise inside me. Christina had tried to destroy our family, to shatter the hope we had fought so hard to build, but we wouldn't let her win. I looked down at Bobby, his tiny face peaceful in my arms, and whispered a promise that I would protect him no matter what. This fight wasn't just for justice, it was for the future of our family. Evelyn sat beside me, her eyes glistening with tears of both sorrow and strength. "Melissa, Benjamin, you deserve justice. Bobby deserves to grow up safe." Her support was a lifeline, a reminder that even in the darkest times, love and family could prevail. Benjamin, always the pillar of strength, took the lead in managing the paperwork and staying in close contact with the detectives. He never missed a single NICU visit, never let the weight of the legal battle distract from being by my side. Together, we faced the long road ahead, knowing it wouldn't be easy, but confident that, with truth and justice on our side, we would prevail. The days in the hospital settled into a rhythm both exhausting and hopeful. Bobby's tiny body lay nestled inside an incubator, surrounded by a tangle of wires and machines that beeped softly, each sound a reminder of his fragile fight for life. Watching him sleep, so small and vulnerable, stirred every emotion in me: fear, love, hope, and a fierce protectiveness I hadn't known I possessed. Visiting the NICU became a daily pilgrimage. Benjamin and I took turns sitting beside Bobby's incubator, whispering promises we hoped he could hear through the glass. The first time I reached in and felt his tiny hand curl around my finger, tears welled up and refused to be held back. That small grasp was the powerful reminder that despite everything, he was still fighting, and so were we. Evelyn's support never wavered. She was there with comforting meals and quiet company during the long hours. Her presence a soothing balm on the nights when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm us. She didn't need words to express her love. Just being there, offering steady strength, was enough. Sometimes she would sit silently beside me, her eyes reflecting the bittersweet mix of joy for Bobby and heartbreak over the pain Christina had caused. Benjamin stayed a constant anchor, balancing the demands of work, legal battles, and hospital visits without missing a beat. His unwavering devotion was the thread that held us together when everything else felt fragile. He handled the paperwork and meetings with attorneys, all while never once missing a moment at the hospital, reminding me silently every day that we were in this fight together. The doctors offered cautious optimism. At 34 weeks, Bobby was a fighter by nature. The neonatologist explained that with proper care, many babies born this early thrived, but the road ahead would require patience, vigilance, and love. Every small milestone, his breathing steadying, his weight slowly climbing, wires and tubes coming off, was a victory that lifted our spirits. Amid the beeping machines and sterile walls, healing began not just for Bobby's tiny body, but for our fractured family. Each day brought new challenges, but also moments of laughter and hope. Evelyn's house eventually became our sanctuary, a place to rest and rebuild after the storm. As Bobby grew stronger, so did we, learning to lean on each other in ways we never had before. The nightmare of the attack lingered in the background, but in its place blossomed a new chapter filled with resilience, love, and the unbreakable bond of family. The day of the trial arrived with a weight that settled over every part of me. Benjamin and I sat side by side, hands tightly clasped, hearts pounding with a mix of fear, hope, and determination. Attorney Eric sat beside us, his confidence a steady anchor amid the storm of emotions swirling through the courtroom. When Christina was brought in, she looked different, thinner, paler, her usual arrogance replaced by a nervous, forced calm. Her eyes darted around the room, avoiding ours, as if the weight of what she had done finally settled on her. The room held its breath as the prosecution began laying out the case, piece by piece, leaving no room for doubt. The security footage was played, crystal clear and undeniable, the angry exchanges, the vicious kick to my belly, the hair pulling and face grabbing, all captured in stark reality. The courtroom was silent, the impact of what everyone had witnessed sinking deep. I felt Benjamin's grip tighten on my hand, his eyes locked on mine, silently telling me we had made it this far. The prosecutor's words cut through the silence. This was not a momentary lapse or an accident. This was a calculated, violent assault on a vulnerable pregnant woman and her unborn child. The charge was clear, the crime undeniable. Christina's defense tried to paint her actions as a moment of emotional distress, overwhelmed by years of infertility and pain. But under the sharp questioning, her composure cracked. Her voice shook with anger and frustration as she admitted to losing control, but insisted it wasn't a crime. The prosecutor calmly responded that while her pain was real, her violent actions endangered 2 innocent lives, and that was a serious offense. Evelyn's testimony was a quiet but powerful moment. She spoke softly but firmly, recounting what she had seen, how Christina had crossed every line, and the heartbreak it caused her. Her words carried the weight of a mother's love and sorrow, and they resonated deeply with the jury. After days of testimony, the judge prepared to deliver the verdict. The courtroom fell into an uneasy silence. Christina's fate rested in their hands. Then the words came, clear and final: guilty on all charges: aggravated assault on a pregnant woman, reckless endangerment of an unborn child, and intentional infliction of emotional and psychological harm. The judge's voice was steady as he sentenced her to 5 years in state prison without the possibility of early parole. He also ordered full restitution for all medical costs, emotional damages, and legal fees. The sound of the gavel striking echoed like a thunderclap through the room. A symbol of justice served. Tears welled up in my eyes. But this time, they were tears of relief. Benjamin whispered softly in my ear, "It's over. She's finally being held accountable." Christina was led away in handcuffs, casting one last bitter glance our way, but her power was gone. The nightmare that had threatened to destroy our family was finally behind us. As we left the courtroom, a heavy weight lifted from my shoulders. The fight had been long and painful, but justice had been served. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe freely again. The dark shadows of fear and pain were slowly fading, replaced by the promise of healing and a new beginning. After the trial, a quiet peace began to settle over our lives. Though the scars from the past remained, we made the decision to move in with Evelyn, whose home had become more than just a place. It was a sanctuary, surrounded by her kindness and steady presence. Benjamin and I found the space to heal, rebuild, and nurture the fragile new rhythm of our family. Evelyn's home was filled with the comforting sounds of laughter and lullabies, the scent of fresh meals, and the soft rustle of baby blankets she lovingly crocheted. She helped with Bobby's feedings, accompanied us to doctor visits, and shared in those long, sleepless nights when Bobby couldn't settle. Her love was a steady light in what had been a dark and uncertain time. As the weeks passed, Bobby blossomed from a fragile newborn into a healthy, curious little boy. His tiny fingers curled instinctively around mine, and his bright eyes tracked the world with growing wonder. Every milestone he reached was a celebration not just of his strength, but of our family's resilience. Benjamin and I settled into our new life, leaning on each other more than ever before. The challenges we had faced had drawn us closer, forging a bond that felt unbreakable. Together, we navigated the complex emotions of healing, grief, and hope, knowing that while the past could never be erased, our future was ours to shape. Evelyn, who had once feared losing both her daughter and her family, found a kind of peace in surrounding herself with love and joy. Watching Bobby grow brought her a happiness that seemed to mend old wounds. Her open heart and unwavering support became the foundation on which we rebuilt our lives. 1 year later, we gathered in Evelyn's living room to celebrate Bobby's first birthday. The room was alive with color balloons, streamers, and the scent of freshly baked cupcakes filled the air. Friends and family came together, their smiles and laughter weaving a tapestry of hope and renewal. Bobby sat in his high chair, wide-eyed and fascinated by the excitement around him. Benjamin stood behind me, his arms wrapped protectively around my waist, and Evelyn sat close, her eyes glistening with quiet joy. As we sang Happy Birthday, tears streamed down my cheeks, not from fear or pain this time, but from overwhelming gratitude. I leaned down and kissed Bobby's forehead, whispering, "You are my miracle, the reason I fought and always will." Benjamin smiled softly, adding, "You're the reason we're stronger than ever." Evelyn's hand found mine, her voice tender. "You've given this family a second chance, and Bobby is our new beginning." As the party continued, I stepped back and looked around the room, Benjamin laughing with friends, Evelyn holding Bobby as he giggled, the warm glow of family surrounding us. The shadows of the past had finally faded. Christina's actions had threatened to tear us apart. But in the end, we had risen above the pain, stronger, closer, and more grateful than ever. This was our fresh start. And as I looked at my beautiful son, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together as a family.